welcome into another great episode of I've Got a Theory. I'm your host, Henish. I'm here with one of my best friends, Alex Halterman, who's an aerospace engineer and all-around genius in most things science and engineering, with credentials dating to NASA and Cornell and master's degrees in rocket science and et cetera, et cetera. Am I getting some of that right?
Yeah, just by education. I work on optical systems at the moment, doing a lot of earth science monitoring, instrumentation development for NASA, and work for a consulting company. So we're all over the place.
So today we're going to talk about how sending communications into space could be a bad strategy for humanity.
Yeah.
And the thinking is that this could cause future harm to us. And this is based off of a book that we've both read. I read per your recommendation. And that's what we've got to start with. That's kind of our teaser to this thing. So let's get started. Alex, tell me your theory.
Okay, so the theory is, it's all about cosmic sociology, right? So the relationship of species across, so assuming intelligent life in the universe exists, what happens when you meet it, and what happens when your communication is on the time scale of the speed of light, right? So
let's say that once again, because you faded out, because we're talking about communication being at the speed of light, right?
Yeah.
So if something is 1 light year away, to communicate with it at the speed of light, it would take 1 year to get that message across.
That's right. So if you and I are having this dialogue and you were a light year away, I'd say this. A year later, you'd be like, cool. And then you'd respond. A year later, I'd say something. But in theory, the closest intelligent species where there may be life are further away than we've experienced, right? So you're talking many, many light years away if we do interact at that level. So
because right now we know that the nearest star to our solar system is about 4 light years away.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think Andromeda or something like that. What's the one called? But there's one that's about 4 light years away, I believe is the closest. So assuming we could send communications at light year speed, if someone smart enough was there, it would take 8 years to get a message back from them.
Yeah. It's just like a hi.
Yeah. Hey, just check in. Is anyone out there? Right. This is the good old fashioned space Marco Polo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then the idea is, okay, you've got this intelligent species out there. Are they evolved beyond us? Are they a super intelligent species? Have they are they at the level that we imagine humanity is going, or that we see in science fiction films where they've got incredible technology?
Hey, Alex, is your mic on your headset? Sometimes you're coming in and out. Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
So the idea is then, do we know if they're way further advanced? Do they have technology that we've never heard of? How does their capability, if you were to think about it from a potential hostile, would they want to put harm on us, or are they friendly? Are they benevolent? There's a lot of uncertainty there, right? In theory, right? So how can you interact on those timescales while a civilization is maturing at the rate that you would expect them to continue to mature at those levels, and continue to understand how that evolution plays into the progression of a threat, or that kind of level of back and forth, right? So when you're engaging on Earth with different civilizations, we're a contentious species, things go awry, but all of that communication happens face to face. You're able to try to reach an accord, but then the idea is, do you act benevolently in response, or do you assume that maybe Earth would be hostile because they're reaching out and we don't know if they're a good or a bad species? So the best thing to do, play it safe, blow them out of the water.
Yeah, because that's, and so we're talking about, I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly. It's Sixon Liu's 3-Body Problem, which is a super popular book in China got translated, and it's been a fairly popular book here in the United States. It's dense, it's good to read. It talks about these sociologies, and it's hard to understand. So the gamble that you're making is very much a prisoner's dilemma type thing.
Yep.
Right? It's an economics problem of, hey, I can help you, we can both win, or I could potentially just take you out, and I'm getting the whole thing if this is working right, or you can take me out and you get the whole thing. And so the concern that you're stating is that because of the unknown of party B, right, which is another planet, and if we had the ability to take them out just as a precursor, because they could be bad, that's kind of the safest move to do, because our species only exists on one planet. If we were a multi-planetary species, would this be less of a concern?
Potentially, but I think at that point you're starting to get into, you would need to be a multi
solar
system planet,
yeah,
right? So you would need some amount of sprawl and diversity in theory to counteract this. But it all comes back to that unknown versus the safe bet. Like, what is the sure thing? And so the theory that comes to light in this book makes you question what the logical choices, as you would say, the prisoner's dilemma of making someone aware that we're out there.
Right. And so this is exactly how the book starts, is kind of the protagonist in the book sends out a message to an alien species. She hears back, and that person she communicates with says, "Don't communicate with us. We'll probably blow you up." Right. And sure enough, she's dismayed by the state of humanity. She's lost hope in our species, and says, "Come on through. What's the worst that could happen?" Right. That's basically what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, so it's just a fascinating concept, because the human spirit is that of exploration. It's that of, like, we want to know what's out there. We want to explore. We want to remove the unknown and make it known, right? But the concern there is then, like, well, what's out there? And if there is something out there, and they run through the same logic problem of, like, oh, cool, this species just reached out from this little solar system in the Milky Way. They're making their presence known. They're clearly evolving because they can send out signals. And we know how quickly technology, it just increases exponentially, right? So on the communication scale, bringing back to the speed of light conversation, let's say they're 15 light years away. So every back and forth in a dialogue takes 30 years, right, as you had said. So
right.
In 30 years, we can just picture 30 years ago where we were from a technological standpoint.
And I gave you that example, right? Because 30 years ago, I was telling you how my family from India would communicate with their family via letters, and it would take 30 days for each mail to go. So that loop would take 60 days to get feedback from, hey, how's it going? And then 2 months later, your grandma says, yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I hope, but that's 30 days in the past at this point, because now
she might not be later, like, sorry, I'm writing this instead of your grandma.
Yeah, I only have 30 days to live. You need to get here. I'm like, shit, I just got that message too late.
Yeah, so you've got this conversation, and so 30 years again from now, where are we going to be at? And then 30 years from there, right? So by 2100, we're that much further technologically advanced. We're starting to spread out to Mars. We're starting to grow bigger and have technologies that allow us to as a human species become more prevalent in the universe.
Yeah.
Right. And so is there the conversation then becomes, what's the risk benefit of allowing us to mature, to evolve, while figuring out whether or not we're benevolent, curious, or warmongering people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so just to kind of jump forward a few steps, because I'm getting to the next logical thought progression on this. This really explains the question of how come we don't hear anyone else in the solar system doing the same thing? Not in our solar system, even in our galaxy.
I don't know that it explains the question.
I think it explains,
you could ask if it explains the question.
Okay, fair enough. So, but the thinking is that, 30, 40 years ago, we send out the Voyager space probes with golden discs of information with, with sending out signals in various forms. And it's
and one of those forms is effectively galactic coordinates.
Yeah, right? Here's where we're at. Here's our GPS. Come and visit. We've got exactly pizza.
Where we're. Yeah. Or blow us out of the sky.
Yeah. So could that be a reason why we don't hear potentially other alien species reaching out because they're trying to keep their coordinates secret?
Yeah. So that's the theory in this book, and it's a fascinating read. It is,
and they call it what? They call it the dark forest theory, right?
They call it the dark forest, right? So
the forest is full of life, but it's quiet because they don't want to know. You don't want to know where they're living, right? It's like that mouse that's hiding in my office, crapping on my counters. We can hear him, kind of, but he's being quiet most of the time.
Yeah. So you're walking through the forest, and you hear a sound, or someone lights a fire, and you have no idea: are they going to offer me food, or are they going to kill me? Or do I kill them and take their food because that's the safe bet, right? That's the dark forest theory, right?
Yeah, on a space.
Super like pessimistic, right? And I'm not advocating that we start blowing planets out of the sky.
Well, but at the same point, it's also pragmatic. True. Right. It seems like it's illogical. So, now talking about this, it makes us think like, what were the people that were game planning Voyagers? Was it 1 and 2? Voyagers 1 and 2.
Yeah.
When they said, hey, what's the best and worst case scenarios that we send this out in terms of response?
Well, there is the theory that do actions that you and that you hope for the most positive result, because there's the idea of the converse to all of this is the idea of living in fear is not a really exciting way to live, right? So the complexity of all of it is the fascinating brain teaser, because I for one am very curious. I mean, I spent my entire career staring up at the stars and just trying to figure out how to play in space and do all of that, right? So, and I'm a very optimistic person. So I am of the mind that that there is positivity in optimism and positivity in exploration. But reading this book seriously made me question some of that.
and it's scary because, like, and maybe that's what's happened. Maybe there is one. All it takes is one, right? And that's the other kind of inevitability.
That's the theory, right?
That's the theory. All it takes is one aggressive species out of 1 billion to say, hey, I don't want to risk it. I'm going to wipe out anyone else that's around, because otherwise they could be like us and wipe us out.
Yeah. So that's
ouch. Yeah. That's painful, because it goes along with the theory that, in a universe where anything is possible, everything is possible, right? And at
the same time.
Right. Not at the same time, but eventually.
Diverging realities.
Right. Because it's kind of the theory here on the planet that if there are weapons that are strong enough to destroy the planet, and if there's a possibility that someone that's a man could get access to them and then blow up the planet, that's probably going to happen.
So there is. And then the converse of it is to get even more abstractly dark, is the, and not to give too much of the book away, right? Because everybody should read the book. Super, super fascinating read. But you get to the mutually, it's the Cold War, right? It's the mutually assured destruction. How do you prevent things from going off of the rails? It's being strong enough to
defend.
To defend, yeah. So the idea of reaching out and exploring, I think, is hugely appealing. But we should do so with a little bit of caution, perhaps.
Yeah, at least until we're strong enough to defend ourselves.
Yeah, or at least know what it means.
Yeah. So, should we do anything different? So, imagine that you and I are in charge of NASA. What would you do differently?
At this point, I wouldn't do anything else differently. I mean,
Voyager's out there. It's
out.
spreading the
Yeah,
word. We can't stop it at this point.
The cat's out of the bag, right? So I can tell you what we can do is go get it.
Pull them back. They can't send a signal to them and like shut them off or something.
They don't have there's no well, there's a record on there, right? So there's no shutting it off.
I thought they rebooted one of them recently to like get them working again.
Oh, they're still pinging.
Yeah,
but you're not going to be able to stop it, right? I mean, it's
no, you can't like turn it off. You can't be like put it on airplane mode.
Well, it is. I mean, it is on airplane mode. It's just cruising off into space with a periodic like. But I mean, it's still going, right? It's all.
Well, because it's got track my phone on.
Yeah, it's all just cruising.
Okay.
So no, I wouldn't do anything differently. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I think that there's huge amounts of value in exploration and in furthering all of the science that comes with it and the technological advancement that comes with all of it. But the thought exercise is it's a good one, and the idea of constantly broadcasting out additional signals, maybe we don't do that.
Maybe we tone it down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I get why your hesitancy a little bit. At the same point, you're right. I mean, there's probably just as much juice in just understanding how our universe works as it would be to make buddies with the next alien species that we come across.
Yeah.
Which sounds great. We watch enough Star Wars and Star Trek where we think that, there's a 80% chance that we'll be good for the most part, until the Death Star comes wrong. Because that's all you need is one Death Star, right?
Right. And then the other, to wrap other theories into all of it, right? You've also got the time scale. And I forget what was it the Drake's equation? Is that the one that's like the theory of life? But then you need
the probability of life, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then you need to add a probability that life overlaps in the universal, time with one another, right? So
because it could have been 1 billion years ago that an intelligent species came and went.
Correct. Yep. So what are the things that species evolve to? I mean, even if you look at the care that I fully believe we need to impart on our Earth, at some period of time, the Earth is going to get swallowed up by the sun. So if the humans are going to continue in perpetuity as a species, we need to get out of the solar system, right?
We need to be a multi-planetary species, multi-solar system species.
Multi-system species in order to be able to be
viable long-term.
Right. In the context of overlapping on the time scale with other intelligent species, with how long the universe is around and how long solar systems come and go, right? So for all of that to overlap perfectly in the time scale, like, we're this tiny little blip in the evolution of our solar system, right? And if we continue all the way through, then we would need to overlap with like that portion of it with that same portion on other solar systems.
Right. So like even the aliens that have likely visited us in the past, they probably were like, this species is too dumb for us to interact with just yet.
Potentially. That's the well, there's a couple of shows and whatnot that touch upon that theory, right? Where you got to wait till you get to a certain level of technical maturity, and then we'll welcome you into the club.
Well, we could talk for hours on that, obviously, but we're trying to keep this as a drivable show. But true. Yeah, my thinking is that aliens don't talk to us until our technology talks to their technology. The digital version, the AI version of have your people talk to my people, because we're still organic scum, and I think that we need our bits and data to talk to their bits and data.
But we could send, but but we can send out vinyl to the universe, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, because
not.
the Beatles are universal.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, there's a pun in there, right? It's like, so no, it's yeah. Don't be overly alarmed. I wouldn't change the course of humanity, nor can I. But it's good to exercise those brain muscles. And
well, I mean, I'll finish on this thought, and unless you have something else, I would say that we should change the course of humanity, where we spend less on things to blow each other up, and spend more on things to help learn how we work in this universe.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Exploration
over explosions.
Improve the planet we have, improve our ability to explore and and grow, and honestly, curiosity is a powerful tool. So
yeah, I mean, I've been hamming up on my dark energy and dark matter, and I heard a scientist on one of the shows I was watching say, science is forever. We'll never run out of things to keep understanding, right? No. And so the amount of stuff that we understand versus the amount of things that we don't even know to look into is infinite. And so the fact that we're just figuring out what dark matter and dark energy are, or we think that we understand that there's something out there and we don't know much about it, just indicates how little we understand about our universe.
Mm-hmm. And our part in it.
And what we're doing. I mean, we're just conscious enough to be able to understand that we're starting to understand that we don't understand it.
And that's the first step.
Yeah. Alex, any final thoughts?
No, I encourage everybody to read the book. I think it's a fascinating read. At times it can get a little slow. Plow through it.
It's worth it.
It'll exercise the brain.
Yeah, it took me a while to get through it because was it a few different books? It's 3 books?
Yes, it's 3 books, and one of them, especially the last one, just starts shoving all of this abstract theory of the way that things could go on. Very interesting, but it's worth it. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thought experiment that's the show is based on. It's to expand your awareness, to think about things that you might not have thought about. And if you're not a science fiction junkie, it doesn't matter because it'll get you questioning what's relevant and important in life.
Yeah, and keep questioning because that's all you can do.
Awesome. Alex, thank you for joining me on this show.
Yeah, total pleasure.
Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. And you can add us at Instagram. You can find me at the PSTV Network. And thanks for joining me, Alex. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Good seeing you, man.